Imagine yourself as a child from the ages of 3 to 8 and how you were. Most of us were very spirited, still creative. No matter whatever kind of traumas were going in our lives, we still had imaginations. We still thought we could still be Superman, Superwoman, be, the president, be whatever we wanted. Your parents come along, your teachers come along, um, even media, all the stuff that comes along and tells you, no, you have to go into this little box of who you're supposed to be. So we go into this little box of who we're told we're supposed to be. And a lot of times, a lot of wounds are created through that.
We're going to be talking about how to heal your inner child. Hi, everybody. I'm Sandy Weiner. Welcome back to Last First Date Radio, where we believe it is never too late to go on your last first date. And to support you on your journey to lasting love, I've written 3 books. The first one is Becoming a Woman of Value, How to Thrive in Life and Love. And this is a kind of a how-to book on how to go from basic survival skills to thriving in all aspects of your life. The second book is really for dating only. It's called Choice Points in Dating. And I wrote this book as a guidebook for dating. I just published my 3rd book, and it's called Love at Last. I don't have it in front of me yet because it's been ordered and the hard copy hasn't come yet. But I wrote this book to highlight 18 true stories of couples who found love later in life. They're inspirational stories, and I can't wait to share them with you. And all of these books are available on Amazon for Kindle and paperback. This week's tip from the Woman of Value book is Own Your Beauty. We all have beauty, we just don't always see it in ourselves. And so I want to challenge you to really just own the beauty that you have. Before I bring on our guest, I want to invite you to join Your Last First Date. That is my Facebook group. It is a group for women over 40 who want to have a positive place of support. So join us there if you're not yet a member. My guest today is Alicia Farricielli. She's a certified life and health coach, and she specializes in intuitive healing and personal empowerment. I love that. Her philosophy combines intuition, holistic well-being, and achieving life balance, guiding clients to overcome limiting beliefs and embrace change and unlock their true potential. Committed to nurturing inner strength and equilibrium, she stands as a pillar of support and motivation for people on the path to authenticity, growth, and a harmoniously empowered existence. She's also the host of the Intuitive Revolution podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Alicia.
Thank you, Sadie. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to talk about the inner child. This is a topic I love. We haven't spoken about this in a while. We once had somebody on my podcast talking about it, and then she came to talk to my private group. I have a coaching group, and I think a lot of people were kind of freaked out by the work because it's pretty deep work. And so we could go really deep in this, but talk to us a little bit about what the inner child is first, and then we'll get into the topic.
Yeah. So your inner child is that little part of you that I like to say the 3 to 8-year-old self, because typically, and it goes back much further, but a lot of times we start remembering things maybe 3, 4, 5 years old. So imagine yourself as a child from the ages of 3 to 8 and how you were. Most of us were very spirited, still creative. No matter whatever kind of traumas were going in our lives, we still had imaginations. We still thought we could still be Superman, Superwoman, be, the president, be whatever we wanted. And then society comes along and tells us, no, your parents come along, your teachers come along, even media, all the stuff that comes along and tells you, no, you have to go into this little box of who you're supposed to be. So we go into this little box of who we're told we're supposed to be. And a lot of times, a lot of wounds are created through that. Things that come through your inner child can be either a very spirited inner child, or you can have a wounded inner child. Or you can have a combination of both. So we want to move the wounds into the spirited, fun, creative portion of your inner child. So a lot of times the wounds happen when we're, it could be from a kid that told you that you were ugly or picked on you, or your parents might have put a lot of pressure on you. For me, I was never allowed to speak my voice, and I had to be my dad was in a very conservative religious household. So I was told I had to be a certain way, and I had to act a certain way and present myself a certain way. And I couldn't have an opinion on certain things. And it was like just very fear based. So that put a lot of inner child wounds into side of me, which was probably more into trauma, but a lot of different wounds, a lot of things that went throughout my life. And so I had to start working through those. And that was like the initial, like the big aha moment in my personal healing journey was when I discovered my inner child and started working with it.
Cool. So thank you for explaining what the inner child is, how it
Yeah.
gets silenced, squashed, put in
Yeah.
a box, and how
Yeah.
you yourself have experienced your finding out really where your growth
Yeah.
was in terms of your inner child. And I think a lot of people can relate to having their voice silenced. I mean, I think
Mhm.
most of the people who come to me for help are finding their voice. They don't know how to express their voice. They're afraid to hurt somebody else's feelings, so they
Yeah.
silence themselves. And they're so other focused and not self focused, like, what can I do to help me and
Yeah.
to advocate for my needs? Because that was not okay when you were little.
Oh yeah. No, it was you had to. It was what your parents. I grew up very. It doesn't matter. You respect your elders. You respect your parents. It doesn't matter what they have to say, unless it was very like Obviously, I was taught. I was luckily taught the difference in like physical, sexual, like that type of thing. That was not an issue for me, but it was more of you have no matter what is said. You have to respect your parents, your elders, and it's because I said so, because I said so, because I said so mentality that a lot of us probably grew up in. And so
Mhm.
that really kind of starts to put these little inner child wounds inside of you. It makes you feel like you don't have that voice. You don't have the ability to talk, that you're not good enough to
Right.
say and to have feelings and thoughts. So we start shoving those down inside of us and just put on this happy face and like the world is great. It's everything's okay when it's really we're not feeling that same way. So we're not being authentic in our feelings. But we also don't know because it's the way our inner child is just acting out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very important to make that distinction and to
Yeah.
understand like where your inner child got wounded and how, because we are all different, but we have similarities in terms of
Absolutely.
getting quieted, squashed, getting that creativity side, just
Yeah.
put in a box. God, I hate being put in a box.
I refuse to be in a box anymore.
I do. It's so funny that when I first got into coaching and I got certified as a life coach, everybody said, find a niche, find a niche. And I was
Yep.
like, I don't want to be put in a box. And I was like, but I like doing everything and I like helping everyone. And then I
Yeah.
realized when you focus on a niche, it's not a box. It's actually a
Right.
container, which is very different from being silenced and
Right.
squashed. And
Using
once you have
expertise. Yeah.
yeah, and then it actually helps you to create because you're within that container. You can create podcasts and you can write
Yeah.
books and you can do all kinds of fun things.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So tell us a little bit about the process you take your clients through.
Yeah. So we start working on, so my clients come to me and they usually have patterns that they're repeating or they have certain things they can't figure out why. They worked, well, most of my clients have done some self-work on themselves. They've read the books, they did the things, they've been in therapy. They're like, we can't figure out why I'm still repeating these patterns. And why I'm doing these things and why I can't excel, even personally, business wise, whatever that is. And so we start to figure out what's the patterns and where do you want to be within that portion of your life. So what belief systems do you have associated with this? And where do you think those belief system came from? 95% of the time, it's came from when you really, really dig deep into it, it's coming from an inner child wound, something that they were told as a child that they've carried into their adulthood. So we go back to those patterns and then we connect with that inner child. So we find out what is this inner child trying to tell us right now? And so we do that for processes of journaling, meditation, writing letters to our inner child, and really figuring out what it is, getting to the subconscious portion of our brains, to figure out what is that inner child trying to tell you right now. Where does it not feel safe, loved, protected, um, and just really shut down? Because when we think about it, and I see example, when you're looking at a 3 or 4 year old and they need attention, what do? They do everything possible to get your attention. They don't just silence. If they do, they're only for a little while, then they come back out. So as adults, that's what our inner childs are doing. Children are doing inside our inner child, which inside of us. And so we go back and try to figure out what is that? What are they lacking? What did they need? Was it, it usually turns out they didn't feel safe or loved or worthy enough, which comes back to the love. And so we go back and we start to love on that inner child and to show it that we're now the parent, that no matter what parent they had, or if we don't want to be the parent, we can imagine somebody. Who would you want to be parent? Do you want it to be Oprah or somebody, who's the most loving, like nurturing woman that you could possibly know? Was it your grandmother? Well, let's go back and act like your grandmother is your now your parent. So we reparent that inner child and we make that inner child feel loved and safe because it's getting that basic root needs that it needs. And then we start to bring out the creativity portion of it through getting some play involved in it. If it's through going to find things that you love to do as a kid, or what are the passions that you have, and what are the limiting beliefs behind that reason why you cannot have fun? You can't jump around and dance and get down to the floor and play with Play-Doh like a kid. Why can't we? Because we put in that box. So we're coming out of that box. And so when we do that, and that the process to that is also a process of forgiving. So we forgive it. We're going to forgive ourselves first of all, because all of us have so much shame and guilt within ourselves. We're going to forgive ourselves for whatever. We're going to forgive our situations. And we're going to forgive the people that harmed and hurt us. And I always preference this because people are like, I can't forgive. Forgiving is not about the other person. You never have talked to them. You don't even tell them that you forgave them. Situation is not forgiving it. You're not forgetting it, because we can't forget situations, and we don't want to shove that down. We want to focus on that. It's basically saying you're not allowing that to take, you're not a victim of that anymore. It's not allowing you to take hold of you. That's not your story anymore. Your story is one of a hero, I guess, versus a victim. And so once the people start the forgiveness process of it, and it is a process. It's not something that happens overnight for most people, authentically. So once you start that process and going through, then you can start tapping into the more creative portions and parts, the fun and joy that's what's inside your inner child. So I know there's a lot. There's a process that goes behind it. It is a step by step, and it is, again, like we mentioned before, it is super tough work, but it can be fun. And once you start hitting those little breakthroughs, little by little, then it starts becoming worth it. And you start to get excited and almost like creating, I don't know if say addiction to healing, because it can be an addiction, but you start to want that more than anything else in your life, is to feel that healing and that love and joy. And so you do whatever it takes to overcome and to connect with the inner child, because our inner child's with us all the time. It doesn't go away. We can ignore it, neglect it, or we can actually embrace it and make it our friend.
So I totally hear you, and I love this process. So I just want to make sure I got it right. So what I'm hearing you say is that first reveal the patterns that we're repeating, where we're stuck. Even though we've done work, we still keep coming back to this stuck place. Then we look at all the belief systems, the limiting beliefs that have been created. Where did they come from? Most of them came from our childhood. And then once you reveal the limiting beliefs, you can start looking at them and then asking your inner child, what is all these things that they're going through, trying to tell them. So they keep journals, they go through this process, and then they start to question about what they're lacking, what they need, right?
Yes, we need to give their inner child what they need.
Yes, because they didn't get it before. So that's part of the reparenting, is we're giving them back, we're giving ourselves back what we didn't get. I love the part about the reparenting where you're accessing a loving person in your life, and it doesn't have to be a family member.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be you. Yeah.
It could be Oprah. It could be anybody. Right.
Yeah.
It could be a dog. Like,
it could be,
really loving, right? So just to be able to access love, access nurturing that we didn't have, and get that felt sense of what it feels like to get that today.
Yeah.
And then play, which I love so much, the idea of letting loose, of finding those inner parts of us, and then the forgiveness part, and reminding people that forgiveness is not, it's not saying it's okay that you did this and I'm going to forget that you did it. It's really to release the hold that we have on this person or people.
Yeah. Releasing those the ties that are holding us, they're keeping us in that same story over and over again. And then we're able to look at their situations, that when you're able to look at yourself with more compassion, and you can possibly this is a huge step for people though, look at the other person in compassion. because they were probably suffering because healed people don't hurt other people. Hurt
Yeah.
people hurt other people. And so
Hmm.
looking at it from a lens of compassion is not, again, not making it okay at all, and not forgetting and not making it okay. I'm not
Hmm.
like, I'm gonna make that very clear, but it's being able to look at them from a lens of compassion and a little more understanding of maybe this is where they're coming from, no matter how horrific it is. And so that helps with your healing process. And all this is all for you. It's not for the other person. It's
Yeah.
absolutely not for them. Yeah.
Yeah. So many people say to me, well, that person isn't going to change. So I'm never going to have that conversation with them. And again, it's for you. Like if you
Yeah.
want to have a healing conversation with somebody in your life, like a parent,
Yeah.
do it for yourself, And so
Yeah.
it's interesting also. I have a client who I just started working with who says I'm kind of boring. I don't really have a lot to say. And I truly believe that it's that inner child that's been
Yep.
silenced that we're trying to now take all the layers off of and access all the parts that have been
Yeah.
silenced and quieted. And she's starting to share some of her childhood experiences with me. And I'm like, oh my God, you were like this brave, bold little girl. You did things that your parents didn't approve of. That took
Yeah.
courage. Like you
Yes.
just got out there. And
Yes.
so just you start to say, oh, well, wow, I could do that. So then I could do this and I could do more things. And yeah, I
I
think it
love
just kind
that.
of spirals. Yeah.
It does.
Let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Amazon Music Unlimited. You can listen to over 70 million songs and thousands of playlists and stations. Plus, you can now stream your favorite podcasts like Last First Date Radio. You can listen to any song, anytime, anywhere, on any of your devices. Get Amazon Music Unlimited for free for 30 days. Just head on over to getamazonmusic.com/last first date to learn more and claim this offer. So tell us a little bit more about your own experience. You mentioned the religious part. You
Yeah.
also were a single mother and all of the trauma that happened that helped you, to form who you are, but
Yeah.
also the healing that took place and how that influences the coaching that you do today.
Yeah. So just kind of take back is, again, I said I was raised in a extremely controlling, fear-based religious family. And I say this with all kindness because I've did the healing portion behind this compassion for my parents, particularly my dad. We don't have a relationship anymore, and that's totally fine. And that's one of the things, like, you don't have to have those conversations, but you can still forgive. Um, and so going through that childhood was so much fear put inside of me that by the time I hit 14 or 15, I was just rebellious and doing whatever else. And I just didn't care. I didn't have any self-worth within me. I didn't feel worthy enough. I didn't really understand why people even wanted to be around me. I felt weird and strange and like just I didn't fit into any boxes. I didn't fit into my parents' box, and I didn't fit into anybody societal's box because I was not allowed. I had friends, and I get me wrong, I had friends that are very good social. I just always felt weird and odd and just never felt like I fit in. So kind of getting through that and then going through having children, getting or married children, and then getting divorced. I noticed some of the same patterns going in and out of my life. Starting businesses and doing the same thing and just getting burnt out. And that was probably the biggest key. I was like, something is like, I start these businesses, I love these at first, and then I burn out and I hate them. They're profitable, but it was so much time, or they were having the wrong clients coming on. So like something's going on. I don't feel worthy enough of anything. I didn't feel worthy of the finances that came behind it. I didn't feel worthy of anything coming to my life because I felt I was in that fear-based. I had to earn it, and I didn't earn it from my actions I had when I was a teenager. That was told that the things I was told that how horrible a person I was from childhood, teenager, into adulthood. And so that really played into me. And so I started peeling back some layers, doing the work, and got to a great point in my, got out of the victimhood stage and starting to have some self-worth. Like there's still something inside of me that feels like it's missing. Like there's something that's just not that hasn't healed. That's like that needs healing. It's not there. So then it's funny how the universe, God works, and it's like, oh, inner child came into play. Inner child and some shadow work stuff. And so I started going down that hole. And I really loved the inner child portion of it. And I was like, this makes so much sense because I call her little Alicia, has been suffering for all these years, for, almost 40 years, 40 something. And she needed help. She needed to be loved and safe and told she was unconditionally loved and safe. I was physically safe, but not emotionally safe. I was didn't feel loved. I didn't feel worthy of anything. So I was like, why is that? Because I have all this love around me. I have all these things. Like I've accomplished quite a bit in my life. I've did these things, but I never felt like I was good enough or did enough. And so once I started diving into a little Alicia and we started having conversations, I was able to start reparenting her. I know my whole world just opened up. And so as I was working with clients, and this was in the middle of like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And so as I was working with clients, I was like, wow, this is really tying into a lot of what their issues are. I'm finding the patterns that they're playing. I'm like, well, where do you think this came from? Like, well, my mom told me this and this and this. I was like, okay, so is that true? No. Well, is it true now? No. So why are we still feeling this way? It's because our inner child is still hasn't healed and it still doesn't feel safe and loved. We can tell ourselves consciously all day long. That's where affirmations are good, but if you don't feel into them all day long, they're worthless. If you don't subconsciously feel into them, it's just like you're drinking Kool-Aid. And so it just it's same thing with the inner child. It's like we can say, "Oh, my inner child's healed." I don't. But if you really haven't healed that inner child, it's that 3 or 4 year old. It's still going to come out. It's going to show up in your dating relationships. It's going to from the partners that you pick. It's going to show up on how worthy you think you are on making the next move with someone. It's going to your business is same thing with that. The clients that come in, how much money you make is so tied into your self-worth and inner child. So it's all these things that happen in our lives that we think that it's other situations or we read a book about it, which is fantastic. But if we haven't did the deep internal healing of it, those patterns are still going to play out and you're still going to be that little hamster wheel over and over again. And that's where it was with me. It was like, I did all this stuff. Had coaches, I'd worked so hard on myself. I was like, there's still something there. And now that I can go back and talk to my little Alicia, when I feel fearful, when I fear scarcity, I'm competitive with other people because it does happen. I know that's my Alicia needs some attention and love to know she is secure and safe and she's good. Like she's okay. I have this. Adult Alicia has this. And so we can have almost a conversation subconsciously. It's like you're almost talking to yourself, but you're inside of your heart center and you're talking to that part of you and letting it know that you're still it's okay. And once that happens, your nervous system calms down, you can focus better and you can actually get into the real issues and problems and start working towards those.
The nervous system it's so
Yes.
important for that to calm down because we
Yes.
are not in our power when it's not calm and we just can't be empowered.
No.
And so that it's such important work. And discovering that the inner child needed healing is a huge part of the whole healing process, and being able
Yeah.
to nurture yourself and have compassion for yourself, like you mentioned, having compassion for the people who hurt you, but also having
You
compassion for
have to.
yourself. I mean, that's what we would do to a child, hopefully, if we're
Yeah.
good parents. And
Yeah. And you can be a good parent to yourself now.
yeah, exactly. And give yourself what you didn't get. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember my brother, he's in his 60s now, but every time I would talk to him, he would say, I grew up this way and that's why I'm so messed up. And I'm like, yeah, we all grew up that way. And
Yeah.
you have a choice as an adult to do this work or to blame your parents the rest of your life. I mean, I told that to my children. I have when one of my children was going through the divorce and she was really angry. Basically, I said, you can hate me. That's a choice. You could be a victim the rest of your life, or you can learn some new ways to deal with the divorce. And I'm
Yeah.
happy to help you when you're ready. But you can be stuck here. That's a choice.
Absolutely. There's so many choices that we have to come out of the victim mentality. And it's really hard, especially we're kind of a society of victim mentalities now. It's everybody else's fault. It's never, we're here because it's somebody else did something to us. That unfortunately does happen. And at this time, you were a victim of the situation, but we don't have to be victims in life. We can rise above that. And that's where the forgiveness portion comes in with it, and the just making those conscious decisions that you're going to make. How do you want your life to be? It's always a conscious decision. And people, when you're in the victim mentality, if you're sitting here listening to this and you're saying, well, I can't make it. I don't make conscious decisions. Things are made for me. That's victim mentality. And so it takes a really hard work and looking at it. Do you want to live like that and stay in that? Yes, maybe you do because it's comfortable. But have you ever experienced joy and peace at one portion of life? Most people have experienced that at least once in their life. Would you choose the joy and peace, or would you choose the comfortable victimization and feeling bad all the time? That's choices you have. You can stay in that and be fine. That's perfectly fine. And I'm fine. Like, you can continue to live your life that way. But if you choose not to, there are tools and things out there that you can make a completely different life, no
Yeah,
matter your circumstance.
very true. And you see so many people who actually get a rise out of being a victim. Like
Oh yeah.
they get pity, they get
Yeah.
angry, and the anger fuels them. And yeah, to me, that's just such a horrible way to live. But it is a
It's comfortable
choice for a lot of
sometimes.
people. It is comfortable, and then they find other people who are in the same camp, and
Yep.
they create their own little communities of victims. And
Yep.
but
Yep.
hopefully, if you're listening to this podcast, you are not a victim. You're looking to grow
Yeah.
as a person, which brings me to my next question. I know you use meditation in your practice, so tell us how you integrate meditation for your clients and how it helps them grow.
Yeah. So I'm a meditation teacher, and I love to teach um, my clients how to meditate, because a lot of times, almost all of them came to me like, oh, I meditated a couple times, but it didn't really work for me. So they didn't do it right. There's certain right ways to do it, and most of it is giving yourself grace through the process. We're not perfectionist. I am a meditation teacher. Even the top meditation gurus, they still have thoughts come in and out of their head. So we can't completely shut our brains down, because if we did, we'd die. I mean, it's just the truth of it. So we have to give ourselves grace through it, and just learning different techniques. So I teach them different techniques on how to start going into a different state of mind, but almost just really calming the nervous system down. So we work through meditation. We'll do some breath work, tapping, EFT, TFT. Tapping works very well for calming that nervous system down, and then do energy work behind it too. So while they're meditating and doing that stuff, they're getting some of these energetic blocks moved away from them. I'm actually starting an online meditation school that should launch the end of October. And so once that's launched out, I'm going to have courses to be able to teach people exactly how to, like 6-week courses, different ways, techniques to meditate. Because I want to create a community of people who are just like so high, they're so comfortable with meditating and perfectly, and they're receiving the benefits of it, because it's so much good stuff. I mean, it's caught, like, I used to be on ADHD medication. I used to set like up him. The thing that stopped me, and the first thing I did was started meditating. And when I was introduced to the fact that I don't have to sit in silence for an hour, I can do even 5 to 10, 15 minutes is the best time. 15 minutes and sit there with some type of music, and then listen and just listen intuitively. That was the most freeing thing for me. Or I could go through a guided meditation and concentrate on my breath, and my nervous system was calming down. And I was like, wow, I'm so much more focused now by just doing that. Meditation is just a fabulous free tool. I mean, we can go into meditation anytime. You can pay, obviously, you can learn, and it can cost some money to pay, but it's a free tool. Once you have this, you can just go in and just release so much stuff inside of you.
Yeah, there's a lot of wisdom in the whole meditation practice. And I
Yeah.
think, religion, the good parts of religion
Yeah.
are prayer is meditative because it's repetitious, because you just keep repeating the same prayers every day. You can totally lose yourself if you see it
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
Um, it's also community, which we all need, So when you take away all the judgments and the I'm right, you're wrong kind of thinking and the harshness of a
Yeah.
lot of religions and what they've become, you can see the wisdom of why these things were started and how it brought people together and gave them a
Yeah.
sense of peace and community. Yeah, I've never been a so-called meditator, but I have loved guided meditations and I
Yeah.
love like yoga and things like that, where
Yeah.
I do get into a meditative state when I'm practicing. So I think even that, like going through movement, people can
Hmm.
do meditative movement or walking
Absolutely.
meditations. And
Oh,
yeah,
walking,
there's,
they're fantastic. I love
yeah.
walking meditation, especially for client.
Hmm.
Like, go for a walk and put on a walking meditation and pay attention to the smells and all the things going on. And you're getting almost like you're in a whole different, you want to get in a different zone with
Hmm.
that's basically yoga can help you get into there. So meditation's great. It doesn't have to be the only one tool for to
Yeah.
get to that certain part.
One of the things that I've taught my clients also is to do even a 2-minute practice where you stop in the middle of the day and you do either do something with your eyes where you're looking at something and change the focus, or you rub two fingers together, you put your feet on the floor, you go outside, you listen for different sounds, like just engaging your senses in all different ways. It really could be 2 to 5 minutes. You don't
Yeah.
because people get overwhelmed because you mentioned an hour, like people most be like,
Yeah.
no freaking way, I'm doing an hour of meditation. But if you break it down into something doable, I
Yeah.
think more people would do it.
Yeah. And it's the more you practice it, the more I can sit for an hour now and do it. Before I
Mm.
was like 2 minutes and I was squirrel, 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 squirrel. And it's like, I'm done, frustrated. But now I can sit and actually get into a deep meditative state. Do I come out of that state in and out? I do, but I can learn. I've trained my brain, trained myself, my brain to go back to that meditative state. And so that's basically staying in there. And you can't, some people can start off at an hour and just do it. They're just naturally that way. Most of us, especially the way our brains are wired now and all the distractions and things going on, 15 minutes is probably the max you're going to get.
Well, it's good to set your goals at
Yeah.
a level that's doable. I mean, otherwise you'll
Yeah,
quit everything you start.
absolutely.
So, Alicia, I am going to ask you the question I ask everybody at the end, which is, what are your final words of advice for anyone who wants to go on their last first date?
Your last first date is to be authentic with yourself. By authentic, don't put on a mask of who you want. Know what you want, who you want. And this goes for, I think, with everything in your life. Really define down what you want. If it's a romantic partner, what are the qualities that are you're willing to that are non-negotiable? And what do you bring to the table? And what do you need to work on to be able to bring to the table for that? Be the person. But really be as authentically who you are and everything that you do, because it's going to show through much more, and you're going to attract the people in that you want to attract, because we don't want to attract in people that are not aligned up to our values and who we are. So if we start attracting in those people and those places and things and business, clients, then you're in for a different type of ride. It won't be your last first date.
Yeah, I think so many people don't realize that having this kind of clarity in every part of our lives is really key. And so many people have come to me for love, and then all of a sudden they had to hire somebody in their business. And so I help them figure out their must-haves and non-negotiables
Yeah.
and and the right kinds of questions to ask. And suddenly they had a great assistant, or another woman needed a nanny. Same process. What are your
Yeah.
must-haves? What are your deal breakers? And people told her she was crazy. Like, what is this list? You'll never find someone. And she immediately found the best nanny. So be discerning, be clear with what you want, be authentic. Don't try to be somebody else. And this is that the inner child work helps with
Yep.
that, because
Yeah.
we start to take the mask off.
Yeah.
The masks come because we had to survive. We had to be
Yeah.
these versions of ourselves in order to not get hurt in
Yeah.
in whatever way, emotionally, spiritually, physically sometimes.
Yeah.
And just to be able to take those masks off is huge. So
That
yeah, I
is.
love that. So tell us, Alicia, how people can find you.
Yeah, so you can book a free 1 hour consult on my website. It's aliciafarricielli.com. I'm going to spell it out for those listening. It's ALICIAFARRICIELLI.com. So there's a button in there. Just click that free consultations or free inner child workshop on there. You can actually reach out to me if you have any questions about inner child healing or anything we talked, meditation, anything we talked about. Happy to help.
Yeah, and I was just going to ask you about your free gifts. So there's a
Yes.
free inner child workshop that
Yeah.
anybody can take and sign up for on your website. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Alicia,
Well,
and
thank you.
sharing your own journey and how you help clients to really actualize themselves and be their most authentic, empowered selves.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody, for listening today. If you love our show, please give us a high rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Share this with your friends, follow us. And as always, here's to your last first date. If you are ready to get unstuck, gain new tools, become more empowered, and finally find your last first date, I'd love to talk to you. Fill out an application to be considered for a complimentary half-hour love breakthrough session at lastfirstdate.com/application.